So thank you again for joining us and welcome to Series 5 of our Perspectives of Probation talk. Today we have Sarah and Leanne from Children Heard and Seen. Good afternoon, ladies, and welcome.
Thank you.
And what they're going to talk you through is Children Heard and Seen is a charity that works with the children of people who've been held in custody or have been affected by imprisonment. It's a fantastic initiative, and I'll let Sarah and Leanne tell you a little bit more. So, Sarah, how did Children Heard and Seen begin? How did it start?
Well, Children Heard and Seen is specifically for children who have a parent in prison, whether they see their parent or not, and it's a community-based resource for children. So we provide different activities, whether it's one-to-one work, group work, mentoring. So it's varied, face-to-face stuff in certain geographical areas, but all over the country can access it in terms of online support. And it started back in 2014. I was a manager of the Youth Offending Service for Oxfordshire, and was very interested in terms of the children and young people who entered the criminal justice for the first time, and a significant number had a parent in prison, and assumed that there would be some support out there for them, and there wasn't. So that's why I set it up.
Because it's obviously it's a trauma for the people who are in prison, but for the children, they're often the people that haven't made any choices to do with it, and they're the ones that are affected most. So the work that you're doing in terms of working with these, what sort of one-to-one work is it? Just describe the work that you do with them.
It can be anything. It can be from children and young people not knowing that the parent's in prison, so it can be supporting the parent and carer, how to tell the child and what to say, appropriate language. Often children have been told in the wrong way, of thinking that maybe dad has gone to prison because he's touched somebody, and then children haven't wanted to touch anybody because they're worried that they would go to prison. So it's making sure that they have the right language, the right tools, so it can start from that. It then is the processing bit in terms of, for children, the one-to-one support to process what has happened in terms of the parent going. Some obviously have the parents been in the family home, and so that's the difference for them, but also the impact of the parent being in prison, how it's reported in the press, how they're treated at school. So it's giving them that sort of safe space to process that. And then we have a very, very varied group work programs for children, but also the people looking after them. And that can be from meeting others in a similar situation, so actually seeing that everyone is as normal as you, or it can be actually focused on specific. So it could be all children all have a mother in prison, for instance, or children who have fathers have committed sex offences. And for adults, it can be ones that have been in domestic abusive relationships. It can be around parenting support. And what we try and do as an organisation is look at what's coming through, what the needs of the family are and what families want and what the children want, and then devise our interventions from that. And one of the support that we do offer every year is face-to-face support across the country. So a lot of our support now since the pandemic has been virtual support, so we can go everywhere. However, we have 3 events every year that are face-to-face over sort of in the Christmas time, springtime and summertime. Summer one is the 4-day event, staying overnight, and families come from all over the country. So we have about probably 250 there on that, so it's massive. And people tend to, children have fun, whereas adults tend to meet others that are similar to them, and form really, really strong, valuable friendships.
So there's a bit of a community feel with it, really, in terms of, and it does help when there's other people in a similar situation, and when the children are going through similar situations, it definitely helps. But from the sounds of it, it's very varied what you do, and it can be tailored to different individuals. What we've got is a video which has been produced based on Children Heard and Seen and what they do. So what we're going to do, folks, we're going to play the video. I warn you in advance, it's very powerful. It's very to the point. We'll play the video and then we'll give people a chance to respond. Is that all right with you, Sarah? Yeah?
It's great, thank you.
Wonderful. So I'm just about to share my screen. And there we go.
Hello, Children Heard and Seen. James Otley speaking. How can I help?
I've been told I can't get any support as I'm no longer with the father of my children, that they're suffering.
I'm looking after my grandchildren as their father killed their mother.
My son's trying to get himself arrested. He wants to get sent to prison so he can see his dad.
We've had to move 200 miles due to vigilantes, and now we have no support network.
My husband offended against me, and no one will come to court to support me.
I don't know if you can help. My daughter was having nightmares. She thinks
I'm really worried because I need some help with explaining what my son's dad did.
Can you help? I'm worried my son is
flipping social worker went and told me his dad was in prison for touching people.
My daughter's mum is in
And he's
prison,
now scared if he touches
and
them,
she thinks
he'll be
she's
sent
the
to
only
prison.
one that
My grandchildren.
My husband has just been sentenced. My ex-boyfriend was on the front page of our local court
Social
for
worker
4 hours.
told
My daughter read it. No one has come to
What do I
tell
tell
me
her
what I need to do.
I'm just so scared to go back to our home.
My mum went to prison when I was 15. I was just about to sit my exams. I presumed this is when support services would step in. I wasn't open to children's services. Nobody came to support us. It was in the local newspaper. Our address, mum of 3 goes to prison, her name. So it was a really, really tough time for us.
My dad first went to jail when I was 10. Of course, that was like a hugely traumatic experience to happen to us as a family, kind of ripped our family apart. But what we didn't realise was it was the start of what was a life sentence for me and my brother and my mum. And me and my brother were just left to fend for ourselves, really. Like, for me, I had lots of, I guess, mental health problems and went off the rails because there was no one there to support us.
My dad went to prison when I was 7 years old. When my dad went to prison, it hit all the big newspapers, everybody knew. I was going to school and nobody was noticing changes in my behaviour, changes in my grades. Nobody picked up the bullying that I was suffering. There was absolutely no support.
As a young child, I experienced parental imprisonment. My father and my mother both spent some time in jail when I was very young. And then as an adult, when I had my own children, unfortunately their father ended up in prison and I done a short time as well. It was just an awful, awful time in our lives. And then Children Heard and Seen came along and made me believe that it wasn't my fault and it wasn't the children's fault.
Initially, when I set up Children Heard and Seen, what I was really concerned about was the statistic from a small piece of research about 65% of boys with a parent in prison went on to offend. So I thought that it would therefore be easy to be able to identify children and young people, that there would be some mechanism that someone would know who the children were. And I realised very quickly that we didn't know who the children and young people were that had a parent in prison. So with children with a parent in prison, Crest estimated there were 312,000, but that was an estimate. We don't actually know, yet we know how many Labradors were registered. And it seems a bit sad that we know more about Labradors than we do about children with a parent in prison.
Just identifying where are the kids that are in need so these kids don't slip through the net and end up taking their lives or end up in jail or end up going off the rails, to make sure that they're not going unheard and unseen.
Most people are surprised when we say that there are children and young people living on their own without an adult in the family home. Last year, in 1 month alone, we had 5 lots of children living on their own. We had an incident of one young person who was 15. He wasn't living on his own for weeks, he was living on his own for months. There was no gas or electricity, it had been turned off, and he was getting up every day and going to school and pretending that there was somebody at home.
These children should be supported. It's not okay for a 15-year-old not to have a parent there and to be punished for what their parent has done. These children need support.
A quarter of the children we support at the moment are only in Oxfordshire. The rest are in the wider part of the country. But that is because there's lack of provision up and down the country for children based in their communities wanting support.
One of my favourite things about supporting Children Heard and Seen where I can is that I can come to their events and meet young people and families who have been affected but come in uniform. The more and more I saw of their work, the more I saw the benefit of supporting children when their parents go to prison, especially when police largely have a part to play within the arrest and investigation and prosecution of the individual. We're aware that it can cause harm, particularly with how children feel about the police and their trust in us, and Children Heard and Seen are there to support that, and that's the reason that I feel this model of supporting children in communities is so vital, and actually that's what needs to be more widely available. So I do get to see the actual support that children receive, and really importantly, it absolutely makes a difference.
You're stigmatized. You are stigmatized as there being something wrong with you or your family because your dad or your mum did something wrong. No, that's their life and that was their choice, not mine. I was targeted. I wasn't invited around people's houses anymore. I lost pretty much all of my friends, and also teachers stigmatized me too because it was in the media. So it really, really did hit every single aspect of my life.
We have had children who have had concrete blocks through the window, and they've had feces through the door. They have watched their mothers being assaulted for their father's offences. They've also been assaulted themselves. We've had WhatsApp groups at school that if my father did what your father did, I would kill myself, and then being badly assaulted and not being able to then return to school. We have had children and families that have had to move to other locations. They've had to change their names because families are associated with the parents offending that have nothing to do with them.
My friend's dad said that she shouldn't associate with me because my dad was in prison, and it made me feel very upset because I am not my dad and I didn't make any of the mistakes he did. Since being with Children Heard and Seen, I've recognised the fact that it's not my fault. They've basically just helped me understand and process how I feel in a supportive way where it's positive and it's not negative.
The support that we offer is wide-ranging. We have children that don't know their parents in prison, so we design crib sheets with age-appropriate language, offence time, so it's very individual. So the parent, carer, grandparent can actually explain to the child why the parent is in prison. We have supported over 850 children and only 4 have offended. But it isn't about them offending, it is about breaking that intergenerational harm.
For me, those years when he was in jail was really, really difficult, even to the point that I took an overdose once and tried to kill myself. And when I look back now on the amazing work that Children Heard and Seen is doing, it kind of makes me feel like, wow, I almost died, like, because of what I was going through, like I couldn't cope. I didn't expect it to still make me emotional now.
The voice of the child is the most important thing to us here at Children Heard and Seen. So it isn't about the relationship with the parent inside, it's about the impact of that parent's offending on the child and trying to reduce the harm that the child has experienced and giving them a safe space to actually process everything that's happened. So actually later on in life, they're not 10, 15 years, 20 years down the line, are still revisiting that trauma.
I just thought I'd be forever living a life of crime, surrounded by people that are in jail. And now I know that we don't have to live that life anymore. And we can be good people and be part of a great community. One thing that really, really helped me was one of the workers took me out and she helped me apply for some jobs. And now, 4 years later, I'm in my 2nd year of university. And 5 years ago, I never believed that would be possible.
There needs to be more in place for children so they don't live throughout their adult lives carrying this trauma. People need to listen, there needs to be stuff in place. It shouldn't be up to charities, there should be statutory requirements for these children to be supported.
If I was looking back at myself, I'd say to her, you're going to be okay. But you shouldn't have had to go through all of that on your own. Somebody should have been there to help, to provide that safe space, that escape, that chance to sit down and be able to work through all of those emotions that you're going through, you know, to provide some help and some understanding. And, you know, to feel like you don't have to be an adult when you're 7. You should be a child. So yeah, I tell her you're going to be just fine. But it's going to take a while to get there.
It isn't sustainable in terms of a charity picking it up. It needs to be going through either through schools' admissions that could be identified when you're choosing a school place, so it's self-disclosure. And schools are best placed in terms of universal services. Families that have a parent in the military are eligible towards pupil premium. We'd like to see something similar in terms of that with the children of the parent in prison. I love it that children are flourishing, achieving their potential, and just seeing the change that we can create by simple support for families.
If someone could have told us as a child, you're not bad, this isn't your fault, this shouldn't be happening to you, that could have been life-changing for us as a family.
Change needs to happen. We need to break that cycle. You need early intervention because a child, no matter what age, needs support when their parent goes to prison.
Wow. Really, really powerful stuff. And the work that you do is absolutely amazing. And there were some stats that kind of really stuck out for me. The fact that, as far as you're aware, there are 312,000 people with a parent in prison. So this work is really important, because if schools aren't aware of it, and if, you know, people are trying to hide it, and we said in the film that there were children living alone for months on end, then how are they going to get that support? How are they entitled to that support? So, I mean, from your point of view, Sarah, where would you like this to go next? Where do you see this evolving?
I think what you're saying, though, that Crest estimated there were 312,000 children that had a parent in prison, and Bernardo's estimated 200,000. Our estimate is far lower, because we've been doing quite an innovative pilot with Thames Valley Violence Reduction Unit, who actually have the data, and they're looking at about 120 to 150,000 children. But again, because there hasn't been a way of identifying and supporting children, everything has been estimates to now. Definitely what we really like to see is, because Thames Valley Violence Reduction Unit does have the data, not just for Thames Valley, but for the whole of the country, but it's not able to be administered because of it needs to be resourced. But they have it from HMPSS, they're using it with their own police data and then the local authority data. I would like to see us an Operation Encompass style model. Now, with Operation Encompass, when the police go out for a domestic abuse incident, then it goes into the local authority, and local authorities then alert the schools. And we'd like the same at Children Heard and Seen, but obviously for schools to be able to feel supported, so making sure that schools are trained and able to do so. But in terms of those universal services, that's what children access. Whereas a significant number of children we support, the school doesn't know that they didn't have a parent in prison, and they're worried about the bullying. So that also needs addressing as well, really.
Fantastic. And Leanne, if I can come to you, it had got in the video that obviously 65% of boys, which is one of the original reasons this was set up, who've got a parent in prison, go on to offend themselves. But with your statistics and data, out of 850 people that you work with, only 4 had gone on. So in terms of reducing reoffending, what you do is massive in terms of prevention.
Yeah, absolutely. And a big part of what we do, and we're very fortunate to have a strong partnership with Thames Valley Police, and hoping to build that across other police forces across England and Wales is that idea of re-establishing trust in families that have had some really negative experiences around witnessing arrest, around you know, in general with the criminal justice system. They have no faith, they lack any trust in those systems. So a big part of reducing the intergenerational harm is to rebuilding those relationships again. And part of the resources that we work and tailor to each young person explores the criminal justice system. So we do talk about, you know, the purpose and the public protection role of police and of course probation as well. And in the hope that children can kind of understand and process that these things do happen, but let's mitigate it the best we can by having those safe spaces and conversations with young people, bringing them back into connection. We often have online groups where police officers will join us and do a little Q&A, and young people can ask them those questions about, you know, their experiences of arrest, and especially with the criminal justice system as well.
Brilliant. And obviously, from our kind of golden thread from all of these perspectives of probation talks boils down to relationships and how those relationships are developed and communicated. And it's key, that relationship with young people and the criminal justice system, in the same way that, you know, probation practitioners, who we've got a lot of on this call, their relationship with the people on probation and what they can do with them in order for things to move forward, that relationship is key. So thank you very much indeed for joining us. It's been a pleasure. What you do is fantastic. It's been really powerful, and thank you very much.